Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So thanks for all your wonderful feedback on my last wrap up. You all seem to really like the vlog style, and so did I, even though I have to find pockets of time and maybe get better at sitting down and filming as soon as I finish a book and being better at keeping track of the books I already talked about, so I don't have to go back and listen to my footage every single time. So it'll be an adventure in me becoming more organized, which is a good thing. I watch all of these reset videos and vlogs that people do, and it inspires me to want to be a spreadsheet girl. I'm just not, or like a to-do list person. It's just not me, but I want it to be me, so I just need to try it. But anyways, I'm already failing because I have 2 books to talk to you and 2 books that I really liked, so that is a win. So I started the month out with a buddy read with Kate, but this was a fail because I think I started and finished before she even started and I didn't message her at all, so that was not great on my end, but I did really like it, and probably that's why I didn't have a chance to message her, because I just flew through this. And I think the way to read this one is to immerse and read it, because I listened to the audiobook while reading along, and I think the narrator does a fantastic job at capturing the atmosphere, because this is like a gothic romance, and it was a 4-star read for me. I was a little disappointed because I had this feeling, I really thought it was gonna be 5 stars from the way people talk about it and the way people love it, but there was just something that wasn't something I absolutely fell in love with, but I really liked. And it's hard to talk about this one because you don't want to give too much away, but it is about a girl who has experienced death all of her life. Everyone around her seems to die, but she cannot. And she has a very complicated relationship with death, and death in this is personified. And yeah, they have an interesting relationship, and she ends up with a distant cousin, and there's a mystery that goes along with that. She wants to save one of her cousins. She really loves this family. It's the first time since she was a baby that she's felt accepted. And then we also get a romance, and I won't tell you with who. There were some plot points at the end of that I kind of saw coming, but the way that this was left was kind of interesting. It's not a cliffhanger really at all, but it does set you up for the next book. And I read this because I wanted to see if I was interested in the Fairy Loot edition of the sequel, and I definitely am. Look how pretty this is, but the cover of the sequel is just so good, and I'm glad that I read this, and then I know that I'm very much interested in continuing on. So if you do like gothic romances, I think this is a good place to start. And I think this is YA, but it's definitely upper YA in terms of the age of our character and everything that she is going through there. So yeah, definitely like historical as well. So yeah, that was a win for me. And then the next book was an absolute win. One of my favorites, maybe my favorite romance of the year. I just love this so much. It was Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. And if you've been around the channel, you know that I knew I was gonna love this. I love Anita Kelly, but this was even better than I expected it to be. I read it in a day. I stayed up late crying reading this, and not crying because it's sad, crying because it's so sweet, and that is just the kind of reader I am. I am more likely to cry at something that is just so cute and so heartwarming, and I'm so happy for the characters, than I am to cry at something sad. I don't know why, that's just how I'm wired, that's how I've always been. So these 2 characters meet on the Pacific Crest Trail. It's Alexi and Ben, and they have an instant connection. They are certainly attracted to one another, but Alexi has stuff going on in his life that keeps him at a distance and not wanting to get into any relationships, when it's difficult for him to open up to people. But what I loved about that is Ben recognizes this very early on, and he's very aware of Alexi's anxieties, and he's very comforting without being condescending, you know what I mean? He never talks down to him or feels like he's babying him or anything like that. It's a very even playing field. He's just gentle with him, and I loved it. And they have such great conversations, even though there are a lot of moments where they are just silent on a trail and enjoying each other's company and pointing out birds and stuff like that. I am not somebody who would ever want to go on a hike like this one, never in a million years, but it was really fun to read about, and this needs to be made into a movie. I can see the montage of them hiking in my head right now. It would be the cutest thing ever. I think people would love this movie, and I think you would love this book, even if you didn't love Love and Other Disasters like I did, because I understand why that one gets mixed reviews. I am much more confident recommending this one to pretty much everyone. I feel like this is a safe one to recommend, and I feel confident that you would like it. And I can't say that about every romance, but this one, oh, I just loved it so much. It was so sweet. cried my eyes out just because of how cute it was. There are some heavier conversations in here as well, deeper conversations that Ben and Alexi have to have based on Alexi's current experience. So I would look up trigger warnings for that, but I don't want to say too much because I feel like it spoils a lot of how these two become deeply connected and then how some of their conflicts come up. So that is all I will say in this one. But if you like found family as well, like meeting people along the trail was really sweet. But the fact that just the two of them wanted to be together all the time, I just loved it. It was so cute. So yay. So there we go. Hopefully next time you see me, it will be with one book and I will be on top of things. I have 3 books to talk about. I am so not getting better at this, but let's do this. These are 3 really fun books. So the first one was The Art of Scandal by Regina Black, and this was an ALC from Libro FM, and I kind of just picked this one up on a whim because the romance readathon is happening and I really am in a romance mood, and this had been staring at me and I loved it. It was so good, and I'm in awe that this is the author's debut, and it's definitely an author. She's definitely an author that I am going to be keeping an eye on, and I will try whatever she writes next. So this, from the premise, you think it's going to be probably more scandalous and more about getting revenge than it really is. So we're following a woman. I'm assuming she's around 40. She's celebrating her husband's 40th birthday, and he is a politician, and she gets a text message from him. It's like a nude photo, and she quickly realizes that it wasn't meant for her and that he is having an affair. And they come to an agreement where she will be able to keep the house and $1 million if she stays with him through like the political season so that he can get elected, and he's got like his eye on the White House and everything. But she quickly falls into, would you call it an affair? I guess sort of, she's still married, but with this guy named Nathan, who is 28 years old, so quite a bit younger than her, and they just have this instant attraction. Their connection's pretty deep, and she's not doing it to get revenge on her husband. She's truly attracted to this man. So I really appreciated their relationship quite a bit. I loved the journeys that they both went down. I thought we were only going to get her perspective, but it was dual POV, which I love. I very much prefer my romances to have both perspectives, and that just worked for me. I was really surprised, and it made me appreciate Nathan more. I just like to see what both people in a relationship are thinking, and they had a lot in common, even though there is that age gap. He is an artist, and he did fan art for like a Tamora Pierce series that he loved as a kid, which I thought was fun. So there's some references to books that we know in the real world, and he helps her discover her love of art again. And because she was like a politician's wife, and she was a Black woman married to a white man coming into this world that is very white, and she feels like she has to act a certain way, having this relationship with Nathan really made her find herself again, her true passions. And just being a politician's wife in general means you have to look perfect, and that is no way to live, and she really opens herself up. I thought it was really, really beautiful, and in some ways it's not even about the romance, it's more about what just having somebody who loves you for you can do for you. And there's talks of therapy and working on yourself from both sides, because Nathan has a really interesting family dynamic that's complicated. It's just, I thought it was really beautifully done. There was some pacing issues for me in the middle. It did feel a little bit long. I gave this like a 4.5 star, but I highly recommend it. I thought it was really beautiful, and again, I'm just in awe of the fact that it is a debut. So I talked about that one longer than I thought, because apparently I'm just passionate about it. I thought it was really, really beautiful. And then on the flip side of that, I don't think you would call Temptation by Kayla Rain and Megan beautiful, but it is such a fun time. This is the last book in the Make Game series. I cannot believe that read along is already over, but I believe we're going to be doing a read along for the next series. So go to the Hideaway Discord. That is Maggie and Hannah's Discord. I will leave that link down below if you want to join that, because these are just such fun books. And the last book, Temptation, is actually my least favorite in the series. mostly because it follows my least favorite of the love interest, Caleb. He's not my favorite, I just don't love a tortured character, and I actually thought a lot of his decision making in this was questionable. He's just not for me. Don't hate me, Maggie, he's just not my favorite. But I did love seeing all of the scenes of all the guys together and the big build up to what we were coming to, like this end of the world moment throughout the entire series. That's over pretty quickly, so if that's what you're invested in, don't pick that up for the fantasy plotline of this, or like the end of the world plotline. This is all about the romances, though we did get some interesting reveals I didn't see coming, and I really appreciated, like, on the fantasy side. So those are interesting, but the conflict is solved rather quickly, and yeah, it's a 53-minute epilogue, so we will leave it at that. And then there's a bonus epilogue that tells you, sets you up for the next series, so that is exciting. But I didn't find this one had as many cringy one-liners as I would like. There wasn't enough Moira, the best friend, in it for my taste, but it was still a good time. I do really like these characters, and I will say that Sunday, the main character, she gets more and more annoying as the series goes on, but I still liked her in the end, and I still loved all of the relationships that happened here, and it was really sweet. Like, the last chapter was a bit of a tearjerker, so yeah, overall, a great time. Not something I would ever pick up on my own, but I'm so happy that I did. So apparently I do like White Shoes. Who knew? And then the last book I just finished on the beach is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Polston. This is one that I had been saving to read on the beach, and I'm so glad that I did. I had such a good time with this book. I read it in 2 days, and it was everything that everybody said it was going to be. It's not quite a 5-star for me because I do think that it is a little bit cheesy. There are some like cringy lines in here, and some of the humor didn't always land for me, but I loved the setup. I did like our main character. She really was a little bit too hung up on her ex, but he did treat her like garbage, so I understand some of that stuff. But she is somebody who, when she was 13, she solved a murder case because she is able to talk to ghosts, and the people in her town, especially at her school, really gave her a hard time for this and kind of ran her out of town, and she's never been back. And then, this is not a spoiler because I think it's important to know this, that her father passes away and she has to come home for the funeral, and there are a lot of topics about grief. So if losing a parent is a difficult topic for you, I wouldn't pick this one up because it takes place over the course of the week that she's home planning his funeral, things like that. But because she's able to talk to the dead, and her family does own a funeral home, they have a different relationship with death than the average person would. And then one day when she is at this funeral home, there's a knock on the door, and it's the ghost of her new editor. And they have an attraction for one another. Another thing that gets to me is if you are somebody that doesn't like when the love interest is often described as being very tall, I wish I could climb him, things like that. That is very apparent in this. Apparently he's built like a tree, and he's very tall, and they want you to know that. So that, if that bugs you, that's in here, but it didn't bother me too much because he was kind of a cinnamon roll. That is just the kind of character that I like. I think that getting his POV would have been nice, but in this case we didn't need it because he is a ghost. So when he wasn't with her, he was just like in the abyss. He doesn't remember any moments when he wasn't with her, so I don't really think we needed his perspective all that much. But yeah, this was sweet. I loved seeing how she had a complicated relationship with her siblings because she had left, and then coming back to this town, and she is a ghostwriter herself, and going to the bookstore and seeing her books there, and trying to kind of come to terms with the fact that she abandoned her dad a little bit. Like, they saw each other on holidays but just never returned to visit, and now she never had that chance, and she never had a chance to tell him that she was a ghostwriter for this really famous author, and all this kind of stuff, like the regrets that you have and can't take back. Yeah, I just thought that this was really a great time. So it is a romance, but it's also tackling grief, and I'm excited to read the 7-Year Slip now. I really think what Ashley Polston is doing with romance is really interesting and unique. So I'm in the middle of a few things now, so hopefully I will have an update for you soon. Okay, so I have a few updates as usual. I have 2 books to talk about and 1 DNF. But first I read one for My Enemy by Olivia Blake, and I read this for Becky from Bex Reads channel, and she has a witchy book club and I love to participate in that because we both love witchy books. But I was reluctant to pick this one up because if you watch my vlog where I let 1-star reviews pick my next read, I did read the Atlas 6 for that, and I really did not like it. Actually, the more time goes on, the less I like that book. So I figured, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to try Olivia Blake again because she's so popular and I want to like her stuff because in theory I think that I should. And I was pleasantly surprised by this. I'm giving it like a 3.5, 4-star. And I think it did have some of the things I didn't love about the Atlas 6 in terms of the writing. Like sometimes it's just kind of overwritten. But because this was like a Romeo and Juliet retelling, that kind of made sense to me. And it wasn't the entire thing. There were actually moments throughout this that it felt kind of YA, where we get text messages between the characters. They kind of feel on the young side, but I liked it. I had such a good time with it. The middle was a little bit of a slog for me, but I thought the ending took an interesting turn, and I really like the setup of this. So as I said, it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but with witches, and in some ways it kind of reminded me of Jade City because they are rival families dealing drugs that are magic based, so that is interesting. And there's lots of bad blood between these families. You realize where that started, and then the one family is all daughters, the other family is all sons, but there's lots of connections between these characters, like romantically, and there's feelings there, and conversations about like taking up your parents' grudges, like fighting your parents' battles, and where does that end. And yeah, it was really, really interesting. Lots of conversations about parental expectations, I think, as well. And yeah, just romance, wasn't it? I did think the romances were kind of sweet, but you always knew that there was going to be tension there because it's Romeo and Juliet. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really, really fun. But as I said, the middle kind of slogged. There was some parts that read really pretentious, but I let it slide. It is a Shakespeare retelling. And yeah, I didn't think that I would read something else by Olivia Blake, but now I want to read more. So I know that Master of Death just came out, and now I'm even more curious about that one. And there's a chance I will pick that up for a future vlog. So that is exciting. That was a turnaround. I love that. I won't continue on with the Atlas 6, but I will continue to check out Olivia Blake's other stuff. And then I DNF'd Deblita Crystal Bloom by Sarah A. Parker, which was a book for Hannah's New Blood Club, spelled by romance. Can't wait for the next month. I think in September we're doing a Krista Broadbent book, Slaying the Vampire King, or Slaying the Vampire. What is that one called? I should know because I like that series. I'll put up the cover here, but I think that's a September book. But Deblita Crystal Bloom just didn't work for me. And I just don't know that I'm ready for dark romance. I am obviously newer to fantasy romance, and I kind of know this about myself, that I am somebody who prefers a cinnamon roll love interest. That is just my vibe, and that is not this. This is a Rapunzel retelling, and I already struggle with those kind of dynamics. Like, as much as I love the Disney version of Rapunzel and the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast, like those are two of my favorites, when they're translated into romance novels, I struggle with the tropes in there. And in this one, I just could not get invested in the romance. I have to say, I will read something else by this author. I'm very much open to it because I thought her writing was fantastic. I think that if this was just a straight up fantasy, I would have loved this. The prologue is one of the best prologues I've ever read. It was pure fantasy. There was gore, there was blood, there was violence. I'm so intrigued by the politics and the world of this. But because it's a fantasy romance, I just can't. Because in the prologue, he saves this young girl and keeps her in a tower because it's Rapunzel, and now she's an adult when the story actually begins, and they have a romance. And there are moments where you can see that she kind of sees him as a father figure. Like, I don't think I would have had as much of a problem if he rescued her and then wasn't in her life at all until she was an adult. But he knew her growing up. Like, something about that I just can't get into. And it just took me out of the story. And I think that the intention of this is it's supposed to be a toxic relationship, and you're supposed to see how these characters evolve. I'm just not here for the journey. That is just not me. I can't get into it, which is a bummer because I do think the world's interesting. I do think the writing is really interesting. I loved the fantasy elements of this so much, but the romance just gave me the ick, and I don't say that lightly. It just was not for me at all. So I eventually made the decision to DNF that, as much as I was enjoying the other elements. And then the last book I finished is one I won't go too much into, because hopefully before you see this I will have posted my next letting 1-star reviews picks my next reads video. And the one that I chose was A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This was ridiculous. This was cute. I gave it a 3.5 stars. Not my favorite witchy rom-com. There was, like, the jokes in here are kind of repetitive, and humor's always hard for me, but in this one it was funny at first and then it just got kind of tired. I did like the romance though. I think that a romance between a witch and a demon is fun. So our main character is Muriel, and she's a witch, and she's prophesied to be very powerful, but she struggles with her magic, and in a disaster where she was trying to summon some flour for baking, she happens to summon this demon, and he is a barterer, so he will take your soul in exchange for a wish, and he cannot leave until you've sold your soul to him. And obviously they have a connection. She has no intention to sell her soul, and he sticks around. And I talk way more about this in that vlog. I will just say, yes, this is spicy. There's some hilarious jokes in here. It's got that thing where she reads monster romance and is very curious about his anatomy. So that's a thing, and that is talked about a lot, to the point that it did get kind of tired for me. The third act conflict, not my favorite. Saw it coming from a mile away, but it led to character development, because at the beginning Muriel is struggling with her magic and she's really naive, and we have to see that character growth and to see her stand up for herself. So I thought that was good. But yeah, I'll go into more depth in that vlog. But I am so excited that we are getting a sequel following her best friend, and I think that comes out in November, and I will be pre-ordering that because this is just fun. It's just plain ridiculous fun, and that's all I want from these witchy rom-coms. And I'm realizing I have to wrap up this video. I was editing it and I realized I never concluded it because I thought I would read more, to be honest with you. I just think August kind of got away from me. I had friends visit. It wasn't as sunny this summer as I wanted it to be, so I didn't read on the beach as much as I thought I would at the beginning of the year. And yeah, it was just a lot busier than I had anticipated, which is not a bad thing. It just was not good for my reading. So I am in the middle of 2 books, The Mask of Mirrors, which I am finishing this morning because I have a live show tomorrow, Sunday the 3rd, to discuss this book with the Book Checkout Book Club. So I think it'll be yesterday by the time you see this, so that discussion will have happened. So if you want to know all my thoughts on that, check out that video, and I will talk about it more in my September wrap-up style vlog if you are curious. And I'm also in the middle of Half Soul, which I was loving. But then I realized I am running out of time to read The Mask of Mirrors, and that is a chunker. It's over 600 pages and more epic fantasy than I typically read, so I had to put Half the Soul aside. I will finish that pretty quickly, I think. I was really into it. So though, oh, and Fear the Flames. I am reading Fear the Flames on my Kindle, loving it, but I just have not been into reading ebooks lately. But I go through phases with ebooks, and my Kindle, it comes and goes, and I'm sure at some point this month I will be back into my Kindle again, and I will finish that because I am loving it. So that is all I read in August. Some highlights for me: I think the best book I read this month was Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly, which doesn't surprise me. I love Anita Kelly. This was like one of the sweetest romance I read this year. Another standout contemporary romance was The Art of the Scandal. I really liked The Dead Romantics. What else did I read? Oh, the demon book, The Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, was ridiculous and fun. So really nothing I read was disappointing. I enjoyed everything that I did pick up. In August, I finally read Belladonna, which was nice. Finished up The Make Games, which was a ride to say the least. So yeah, no complaints from me. I am really looking forward to my September reads, so I will leave my September TBR linked down below if you're curious about that. But I would love to know your thoughts on any of the books that I did manage to get to in August. What was the best book you read in August? I would love to hear about it. And thank you again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.